He's the Stone Zone with Roger Stone.
People love him and respect him. Roger Stone.
Now, get in the zone. It's the Stone Zone. Here's Roger Stone.
You are now entering the Stone Zone with all the latest political news. Well, Hunter Biden is at it once again, attempting to rewrite one of the most thoroughly documented political scandals in modern American history. As Miranda Devine reported in the New York Post, Hunter is now on a shameless media blitz promoting his latest documentary while resurrecting the same tired conspiracy theories that collapsed years ago and concocting some new ones. This time, Hunter claims that the infamous laptop was somehow a transformation into a collection of fabricated mixtapes by a cast of villains that supposedly includes Rudy Giuliani, the Russians, his former psychiatrist, Dr. Keith Ablow, and me. That allegation is, of course, false. Let me state this as plainly as I possibly can. I never possessed Hunter Biden's laptop. I never possessed the contents of Hunter Biden's laptop. I never communicated with Rudy Giuliani or anyone else about obtaining, reviewing, distributing, or publishing the laptop or its contents. Can I be any more definitive? Everything I know about Hunter Biden's laptop, I learned by reading the New York Post and Miranda Devine's two best-selling books, Laptop from Hell and The Big Guy, just as millions of other Americans did. Hunter's efforts to now lump me into this fictional narrative is nothing more than an attempt to manufacture villains because he simply can't escape the facts. Those facts are not in dispute. Hunter Biden abandoned the laptop at John Paul MacIsaac's repair shop in Delaware in April of 2019. When it was never reclaimed, MacIsaac's ultimately turned the device over to the FBI. The FBI investigators possessed that laptop for months before the story became public. Independent forensic examinations concluded that the data was authentic. The laptop itself was later introduced as evidence during Hunter Biden's federal gun prosecution. His own attorneys never succeeded in proving that it was fabricated, and that's because, well, it wasn't. The contents have been corroborated repeatedly by emails, text messages, financial records, photographs, videos, witness testimony, congressional investigations, and subsequent reporting. Those facts are not conspiracy theories. They're facts. Yet Hunter continues insisting that somehow everyone else is lying and he's the only one who's telling the truth. Frankly, that strategy may work in Hollywood documentaries financed by wealthy benefactors eager to rehabilitate his reputation. It may appeal to sympathetic podcast hosts and friendly interviews who have never challenged his claims. It may even satisfy those who desperately want history written, but it cannot change reality. The laptop revealed embarrassing details about Hunter Biden's personal life, but it also exposed serious questions surrounding his overseas business dealings, his relationship with foreign interests, and the extraordinary access that appeared to accompany the Biden family name. Those issues deserved scrutiny then, and frankly, they deserve scrutiny now. Instead of addressing those questions honestly, Hunter Biden has now chosen a familiar strategy: attack the messengers, invent conspiracies, and accuse innocent people of participating in some elaborate political plot. Well, I refuse to allow my name to be used as part of that fiction. The irony is impossible here to ignore. For years, Hunter Biden and his political allies insisted the laptop was, quote-unquote, Russian disinformation. That claim has collapsed under the weight of overwhelming evidence. The authenticity of the device has been established repeatedly. Even major news organizations that once dismissed the story were eventually forced to acknowledge the truth of it. Now that the Russian disinformation narrative has failed, Hunter Biden has simply invented a new one. Apparently, facts are flexible whenever they become politically inconvenient. Now, addiction is a tragedy. Recovery deserves respect. But neither addiction nor recovery erases documentary evidence. Neither does it change emails that were sent, business transactions that occurred, photographs that exist, or records that may have been authenticated. Nor does it justify falsely accusing people who had absolutely nothing to do with the laptop. That would be me. Americans have watched this saga unfold for years. They're perfectly capable of distinguishing between verified evidence and public relations. History should be written from facts, not from documentaries designed to salvage someone's damaged reputation. Hunter Biden may be able to rewrite his script, but he cannot rewrite history. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump is expected to address newly declassified intelligence concerning alleged foreign efforts to interfere in the 2020 election during a nationally televised speech Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm in Washington, D.C. today, and frankly, the entire town is buzzing about it. According to reports, a new White House task force has been reviewing thousands of pages of classified intelligence and law enforcement records for evidence of election irregularities and foreign influence. Officials are reportedly preparing to release documents in the coming weeks. President Trump is expected to appear alongside senior national security officials, including CIA Director John Ratcliffe, FBI Director Cash Patel, and other administration leaders. Now, this announcement follows renewed federal scrutiny of election operations in Fulton County, Georgia. Earlier this year, the FBI searched the county elections office while the Justice Department sought information involving personnel who handled mail ballots, voter review panels, mobile voting locations, ballot transportation, recounts, audits, and precinct management. The American people have been told for years to stop asking questions about the 2020 presidential election. But ignoring the criminal acts that I believe took place here is akin to spitting on the graves of the founding fathers. This really must be clarified. Otherwise, nothing will ever prevent them from doing it again the next chance they get. There must be consequences for these malicious actions. Now that intelligence agencies evidently possess evidence showing that foreign governments and domestic actors attempted to manipulate, influence, or disrupt the 2020 presidential election, well, the public deserves to see it, and heads must roll. Officials who conceal information or mislead Congress should be thrown in prison for lengthy sentences after standing trial and getting convicted. Thursday's speech could mark an important step towards restoring trust in the election system. America cannot secure future elections while refusing to fully investigate the past. Release the documents, follow the evidence, and let the truth speak for itself. That's the only way faith and an authentic democracy within our constitutional republic can ever be restored. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump has formally notified Congress that the U.S. military operations against Iran have resumed as American forces launch a third consecutive night of strikes against the regime's missile sites, air defenses, coastal radar, and drone capabilities. You have to admit it, Donald Trump gave peace a chance, but the Iranians could not live up to the MOU they signed. I'm convinced they signed it only to buy time. The White House now says that more than 140 Iranian military targets were hit over this past weekend. Iran answered by attacking U.S.-linked facilities across the Gulf and threatening commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. Iranian forces have fired warning shots, targeted vessels, and claim that the strait is closed, while American protection has kept the waterway open. Oil prices are surging as the danger spreads. Reports of Houthi missile attacks on Saudi Arabia show that Tehran's proxies are threatening America's allies, global trade, and the world's energy supply. President Trump says Iran broke another agreement will now be hit hard. He's also reinstated a blockade of Iranian ports, making it clear that the United States will not tolerate threats, stall tactics, or broken promises. For decades, America's foreign policy establishment treated Iran as a difficult negotiating partner. The reality is simpler. This is a radical regime that uses terrorism, missiles, proxies, and economic blackmail whenever diplomacy buys it time. Iran's erratic behavior is proving President Trump is right. Half measures will only postpone the next crisis. The United States should decisively destroy Iran's ability to threaten American forces, close international waterways, or terrorize its neighbors. Peace will not come from another paper agreement. It will come when Iran's radically Islamic military machine can no longer endanger the free world. Meanwhile, South Carolina has a new interim U.S. Senator. The appointment is both fitting and personal. Governor Henry McMaster, a friend of mine since he was a U.S. attorney under President Ronald Reagan, has selected Darlene Graham Nordon, the younger sister of the late Senator Lindsey Graham, to temporarily fill his seat until voters choose a permanent replacement this November, a special election. Nordon says she will work to complete her brother's unfinished business, support President Trump, and serve the people of South Carolina. Her appointment was preceded by a recommendation from President Trump, who called it a tribute to the brother who helped raise her after their parents died. It is a moving American story, really. Lindsey Graham stood by his sister through family tragedy, and now she's stepping forward to honor his memory and carry on his public service. So I say congratulations to Senator Nordon as she takes on this responsibility during a difficult moment for her family and her state. But South Carolina Republicans must also keep their eyes on the future. An interim appointment is meaningful as a tribute, but not a substitute for long-term proven conservative leadership. The next senator, whoever he or she may be, should have incredible MAGA credentials. They must be strong constitutional conservatives who will vote to secure the border, defend America's energy independence, support law enforcement, confront China, protect the unborn, and put the interests of American citizens first with total consistency. Voters should demand more than familiar rhetoric or establishment promises. This seat has been held by only two men in nearly 70 years, the late Strom Thurmond and then, of course, Lindsey Graham. South Carolina now has an opportunity to choose a senator who will stand with President Trump and fight for the America First agenda for decades to come. That person must emerge during the upcoming special election. Meanwhile, a major alleged financier of America's military far left is facing consequences for his evil, subversive activities. Jim Fergie Chambers, heir to the Cox media fortune, and a self-described communist, was arrested in Ibiza at the request of the U.S. Justice Department. He's awaiting possible extradition on federal charges involving international money laundering and an alleged effort to provide material support to foreign terrorist organizations. Prosecutors allege that Chambers moved millions of dollars from American banks to accounts in Tunisia after leaving the United States in 2023. Reports say investigators are examining whether those funds intended to support Hamas or some other extremist network. Chambers has also been identified as a backer of radical activist groups tied to anti-police campaigns, militant pro-Palestinian organizing, and revolutionary Marxist causes. For years, wealthy ideological donors have poured money into organizations openly hostile to America, capitalism, law enforcement, and Israel, while political leaders and much of the media look the other way. They've wreaked havoc on the rule of law and damaged the fabric of America considerably. That era, thank God, seems to be finally coming to a close. Federal investigators are also examining other foreign-linked funding networks, while Secretary of State Marco Rubio prepares to convene officials from 60 nations to confront transnational far-left extremism. I'm Roger Stone. You're listening to The Stone Zone, and we'll be right back.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This is The Stone Zone. Now, get in the zone. It's The Stone Zone.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart, and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone. Where's Roger Stone?
Here's Roger Stone.
And we're back in the Stone Zone. A federal appeals court has revived hundreds of lawsuits accusing Tylenol manufacturer Kenvue of failing to disclose risks for autism and other developmental disorders connected to Tylenol use during pregnancy. This is a welcome development for accountability against Big Pharma. The Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that a trial judge went too far by excluding testimony from 3 expert witnesses and effectively shutting down roughly 500 cases. The appeals panel said the experts used recognized scientific methods and that disagreements over the research should be examined through the legal process, not dismissed before plaintiffs can even make their case. The ruling does not establish that Tylenol causes autism, ADHD, or other serious developmental conditions. Kenvue continues to deny any causal connection and says independent research supports the medicine's safety. But that is precisely why evidence should be tested openly in court, with documents reviewed, witnesses questioned, and corporate conduct subjected to scrutiny. President Trump previously urged pregnant women to avoid Tylenol and called for stronger warnings, bringing national attention to questions that the financial and Big Pharma establishment had too often brushed aside. Internal communications reported in the media have also suggested that some company researchers recognized growing concerns years ago. Americans have watched pharmaceutical giants collect enormous profits while enjoying extraordinary political influence and limited accountability. For decades, no questioning of Big Pharma was allowed within the federal government, as they had totally captured the FDA and other bureaucracies. Families deserve transparency, honest risk disclosures, and the right to have legitimate claims heard. This decision is a victory for due process and public accountability. It shows that Big Pharma no longer owns our system. The individuals who have had their lives destroyed and watched their children suffer because of Big Pharma's products will now have their day in court. When we come back, we'll talk about Graham Plattner. He is the failed Democrat candidate for the U.S. Senate in Maine. And as you're going to learn, he was shielded by big tech. It's disgraceful as to how they covered for this man, but now he is crashed and burned. And that makes it much more difficult for Democrats to have any shot at winning the U.S. Senate. Maine is one of the few blue states represented by a Republican senator, Susan Collins. Plattner was their golden-haired boy. He was the chosen one until he crashed and burned. We'll talk about it on the other side when we come back. I'm Roger Stone. You're listening to Stone Zone. Don't go away.
The Stone Zone. Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This is the Stone Zone. Now, get in the zone. It's the Stone Zone.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart, and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone. Where's Roger Stone?
Here's Roger Stone.
And you're back in the Stone Zone, the hottest political show on radio today. As the Graham Plattner debacle in Maine unwinds, it begs the question, how did it get so far? How was a man this disgraceful, this disreputable, and this unqualified able to win a major party primary? He actually drove the sitting Democrat governor of Maine out of the race. The answer has something to do with big tech censorship. You see, a new Media Research Center study shows that Apple News and Google News deliberately protected Plattner from damaging coverage while he remained politically useful. According to the watchdog organization, the two platforms largely failed to surface negative reporting about the former Maine candidate, Graham Plattner, between November 2025 and May of 2026. During that period, numerous other outlets published stories involving his Nazi tattoo, his offensive online posts, his accusations by many of sexual assault and abuse. There were other controversies as well. The MRC says that Apple and Google overlooked at least 112 negative stories. The blackout reportedly ended only after the New York Times published a May 30th report about a sexting controversy which triggered broader scrutiny. MRC President David Bozell argues that the platforms buried damaging information while Plattner appeared capable of defeating Republican Senator Susan Collins, then allowed the negative coverage against Plattner to spread only after he became a political liability and it became clear that he could not win. Google, of course, denies the charges and calls the study's methodology flawed, insisting that its news results are updated constantly and shaped by user interests and location. Nonsense. Plattner later ended his campaign after multiple women accused him of sexual misconduct, abuse, and even rape. Plattner denied wrongdoing, but Democrat support rapidly collapsed and he was thrown out like a bag of trash. The larger issue is bigger than one pathetic failed candidate in Maine. Apple and Google exercise enormous influence over what millions of Americans see, or more importantly, never see. When powerful technology companies control the flow of political information, even the appearance of partisan suppression demands investigation. Common sense voters have warned for years that big tech can quietly shape elections. This case is another reason why the Trump administration must enforce platform neutrality to ensure that voters receive the full story before, not after, Election Day. Meanwhile, Michigan Democrat Senator Elissa Slotkin is again under fire after claiming that the Save America Act would disenfranchise all married women and make it harder for Democrats to win elections. Speaking at a town hall, Slotkin, a former CIA agent, argued that married women could face problems proving citizenship because their current names may differ from those on their birth certificates. Where do they come up with this stuff? Republican lawmakers quickly rejected that argument. Senator Rand Paul called the claim false and insulting, noting that women are fully capable of providing documents proving they're American citizens. Senator Mike Lee compared the process to completing an I-9 employment form, which millions of Americans already do when starting a job. At the heart of this debate is a simple question. Should people registering to vote in federal elections be required to prove they're U.S. citizens? Republicans say the answer is obviously yes. Democrats clearly say the answer is no. Citizen verification is not voter suppression. It's a basic safeguard that protects legal voters and strengthens confidence in election results. Democrats frequently warn that identification and eligibility requirements will reduce participation. But evidence from Georgia tells a very different story. Following election law changes, early voting actually surged. Black voter participation increased, and recent primary turnout actually reached record levels. Slotkin's rhetoric appears designed to frighten women rather than address the actual legislation at hand, the SAVE Act. Married women routinely update names on driver's licenses, passports, tax records, and unemployment documents. Protecting elections does not disenfranchise voters. It protects their ballots from being diluted by unlawful participation. Congress should reject the scare tactics and, in the name of Lindsey Graham, pass strong citizenship verification requirements for federal elections by approving the Save America Act immediately. Republican U.S. Congressman Paul Gosar of Arizona is demanding the shutdown of the National Institute of Health's Rocky Mountain Laboratories in Montana following explosive allegations involving virus smuggling, serious safety breaches, and possible bureaucratic cover-ups. Gosar is asking Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and the NIH Director Jay Bhattacharya to immediately halt research and permanently wind down that facility, which critics have dubbed Wuhan West because of its connections to the former Director of National Health, Anthony Fauci, and dangerous pathogen experiments. The Justice Department has charged 2 former laboratory researchers with allegedly smuggling the activated monkeypox virus samples into the United States. A whistleblower has also claimed that officials knew that the activity took place before the federal investigation, and they attempted to conceal it. Additional allegations involve a monkey bite that reportedly exposed a laboratory employee to Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever, a deadly Ebola-like virus. Congressman Gosar says the facility has conducted taxpayer-funded experiments involving bats, monkeys, coronaviruses, Ebola, and other zoonotonic diseases. Americans have every right to ask, why federal bureaucrats continue funding dangerous research while hiding behind secrecy whenever something goes wrong. After the failures and unanswered questions of the Fauci era, promises of internal reviews are no longer enough. Secretary Kennedy and Director Bhattacharya should impose an immediate safety stand-down, release all the relevant records, investigate every allegation, and hold responsible officials accountable. If the federal government cannot safely manage some of the world's most dangerous pathogens, then it has no business experimenting with them. Protecting public safety must come before bureaucratic careers, institutional reputations, or Anthony Fauci's legacy. And while we're at it, let's lock up Fauci for lying under oath to Congress and crimes against humanity. Senator Rand Paul has said repeatedly that Fauci lied about his knowledge of taxpayer funding, of the weaponization of the COVID-19 vaccination virus, the COVID virus in the Wuhan lab, and it's time for accountability. Meanwhile, Michigan's August 4th Democratic Senate primaries become a major test of whether the party establishment can still restrain its far-left, progressive, or socialist wing, or whether socialist politics now control the National Democratic Party future. After State Senator Mallory McMorrow dropped out of the race, it's now a head-to-head battle between Congressman Haley Stevens, an establishment-backed moderate, and Abdul El-Sayed, the far-left radical Muslim who's the favorite of Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib, and the United Auto Workers. The stakes could hardly be higher, frankly. Democrats need to hold the retiring seat of Senator Gary Peters if they hope to regain the Senate. Yet El-Sayed supports Medicaid for all. He wants to abolish ICE, cut off all aid to Israel, has previously backed defunding the police. He's also campaigned with controversial anti-Semitic far-left streamer Hassan Piker. Congressman Stevens, on the other hand, argues that her record of winning Republican territory make her the safer choice against strong Republican nominee, former Congressman Mike Rogers. Stevens is backed by Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer's allies, former Michigan Senator Debbie Stabenow, former Michigan Governor Jennifer Granholm, and millions in outside spending. This is no ordinary primary. This is a referendum on whether Democrats still care about electability in a battleground state that President Trump carried twice, or whether ideological activists will push the party even further left. If El-Sayed wins, the socialist wing will claim another scalp, and Republicans will gain a powerful argument that today's Democrat Party has abandoned the center. Michigan Democrat voters are about to reveal whether the establishment still has control or whether the radical socialists, who are actually Marxists, are now running the show. The result will echo far beyond Michigan and shape the national midterms. While Democrats going crazy bodes well for Republicans, we can't be arrogant and take radicals like El-Sayed for granted. They will say anything to get elected, and we can't get complacent. We must go the extra mile to make sure the cancer of socialism does not spread across the country. It is important to note, however, that the socialist victories are not limited to urban areas like New York. In recent days, a veteran Democrat congresswoman in Colorado was defeated. Now these contests in Michigan will tell us whether the old Democrat Party, the party of John F. Kennedy, the party of Harry Truman, the party that believed in capitalism, free enterprise, God, a strong national defense, and was anti-communist, still exists. Meanwhile, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth is taking a long overdue step to protect America's national security by creating a joint Pentagon Justice Department task force to identify and prosecute officials who leak sensitive information to the media. Hegseth says the Pentagon's Office of General Counsel will now have broad authority to obtain records, support, and information across the department for leak investigations. The Secretary's message was direct. Access to classified and confidential material is a sacred trust, and those who betray it will face the full force of the law. This should not be controversial. Unauthorized leaks can expose military operations, endanger American troops, compromise intelligence sources, and hand valuable information to hospital governments. Yet Washington has spent years treating politically motivated leaking as a harmless insider sport, especially when those leaks damage Republican administrations. Hegseth's long overdue actions demonstrate that freedom of the press does not give government officials permission to steal and disclose protected national security information. The focus must remain on the officials who violated their oaths, not on creating some excuse for bureaucratic sabotage. Pete Hegseth has also faced resistance over tighter Pentagon press rules, and courts will continue to define those constitutional limits. It may not be easy to bring the leakers to justice, but Hegseth nevertheless remains dedicated to the task. After all, many of those who undermine this administration's aims do so with treasonous intent. The Trump administration is right to restore discipline, accountability, and consequences inside the national security establishment. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump has signed an executive order dramatically reducing the size of two sprawling national monuments in Utah, restoring millions of acres to broader public use and opening the door to responsible energy development. The order reduces Grand Staircase Escalante and Bear Ears from a combined 3 million acres to roughly 300,000. The monuments were created by Presidents Bill Clinton and Barack Obama under expansive interpretations of the Antiquities Act. President Trump said previous administrations had taken the land away from the people. Utah Governor Spencer Cox praised the decision by Trump, arguing that the Antiquities Act required monumental designations to cover the smallest areas necessary to protect genuine history and cultural sites, not entire regions larger than some states. Environmental activists and tribal organizations opposed the reduction, warning that Bear Ears contains sacred sites and ancient settlements. Those important locations will continue to be protected under President Trump's order. But preserving specific treasures does not justify locking up millions of surrounding acres from mining, drilling, grazing, recreation, and local economic development. The original boundaries covered major coal and uranium deposits while placing enormous power in the hands of distant federal bureaucrats. This was designed by the Democrats working to stop development as they slow-rode socialism into America. This action reflects President Trump's broader American First energy policy. We must protect legitimate landmarks, respect state and local communities, yet stop Washington from using environmental designations as permanent land grabs. I'm Roger Stone. You're listening to The Stone Zone. Don't go away because we'll be right back.
This is The Stone Zone with Roger Stone.
It is a great, great person, Roger Stone.
The Stone Zone. The Stone Zone. Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This is The Stone Zone. Now, get in the zone. It's The Stone Zone.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart, and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone. Where's Roger Stone?
Here's Roger Stone.
And you're back in the Stone Zone. The flock camera controversy continues to engulf America. Now there's a disturbing case in Minnesota raising fresh concerns about flock license plate reading cameras and the growing abuse of warrantless mass surveillance as the land of the free morphs into a technocratic hellscape right before our very eyes. Automotive journalist Joel Feder was test driving a Range Rover when 4 police vehicles surrounded him in a Kohl's parking lot in Minnesota. Officers approached with hands near their weapons, ordered Feder and his wife out, and subjected him to a pat-down. The reason? Flock's automated camera system had incorrectly flagged the vehicle's license plate as stolen. The actual stolen plate was reported in California as 34-03-DTM, but Feder's plate was 34-10-DTM. The The system ignored the middle numbers and generated a false match. Police had reportedly tracked the vehicle for days before making the stop. Federer was fortunate the encounter ended peacefully. Another driver facing the same error may not be so lucky. Now, this is far from an isolated incident. In Colorado, a woman was accused of stealing a package simply because flock cameras recorded her vehicle entering and leaving a neighborhood near the time of a theft. She was considered guilty until proven innocent, thanks to the technology of flock cameras, and had to spend considerable resources before the charges were ultimately dropped. These systems can track where innocent Americans travel, whom they visit, and how they live, all without a warrant or probable cause. Republican U.S. Congressman Scott Perry of Pennsylvania has called for an end to flock-style surveillance, warning that it violates the Fourth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. And he's right. Technology should help the police identify criminals, not turn every law-abiding driver into a suspect. Dragnet surveillance caused by flock cameras could be weaponized at a moment's notice to destroy our civil liberties. Imagine if they were around during the COVID pandemic. The psychotic authoritarian lockdowns would have been so much worse. It's time to ban flock cameras before the Orwellian nightmare manifests itself completely and Big Brother becomes entirely inescapable. Progressive Democrats are preparing a new campaign to impose a national wealth tax on successful Americans, turning envy and class warfare into a central issue for the 2026 midterm elections. A group called Tax the Greedy Billionaires is pressuring Democratic candidates to support its five and dime plan. The proposal would seize 5% of household wealth above $50 million and 10% from anybody making more than $250 million every year. Supporters claim the tax could raise nearly $7 trillion over a decade, but those promises ignore the obvious problems. Privately owned companies, farms, real estate, and other assets are difficult to value. Wealthy Americans can move money overseas, and a federal wealth tax would face major constitutional challenges. This is not simply about asking high earners to pay income taxes. It's an annual government claim on property people already own and may have already paid taxes to acquire. Yet California Governor Gavin Newsom has opposed a state-level wealth tax, warning that wealthy residents would simply leave and take investments, business, and their tax revenues with them. Americans should encourage people to build companies, create jobs, and invest, not punish success because socialist activists resent it. Washington, D.C. does not have a spending problem, and confiscating private wealth will not fix decades of reckless budgets. Even if all the money was seized by the wealthy, it would not pay down the federal debt and the money that is owed for entitlements. Giving politicians trillions of dollars more to waste would not be, or would be akin to giving a junkie an unlimited supply of heroin. Doesn't make any sense, but liberals are hoping that spite and envy win out over logic in the minds of voters. Common sense voters must continue to promote economic growth, spending restraint, simpler taxes, and equal treatment under the law, not constitutionally devious wealth grabs designed to divide Americans. I'm Roger Stone. You've been listening to the Stone Zone. Until tomorrow, God bless you and Godspeed.
Thanks for listening to The Stone Zone with Roger Stone. You can hear The Stone Zone with Roger Stone weeknights at 8 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode, so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?